I woke up in the middle of the night to a strange hum that chilled me to the bone. It seemed that the very space around me was vibrating, and it was as if hundreds of bells were ringing in my head. I got out of bed and looked out the window. Outside the city, somewhere on the horizon, the sky was burning with a bright flame. I could see huge white silhouettes hovering above the ground, like giant insects looking for their prey. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding in my chest. I grabbed my phone, but there was no connection. The TV only showed an emergency message.
Do not leave the house. Seek shelter. The enemy is unknown.
Who are they? What was going on? I ran to the balcony, and at the same moment I heard a scream from the neighboring apartment. The street was in panic. People were running into the streets, not knowing what to do. Some were praying, some were screaming, some were trying to start the car and escape. But in the sky there were the same black silhouettes. And then for the first time, I saw them. Huge creatures without eyes. They moved silently, but every step they took left a wave of destruction behind. I knew I had to act quickly. I grabbed my backpack, stuffed it with a bottle of water, some food, a knife, and a flashlight. I was shaking. What if I don't make it out? What if this is the end? I thought about my parents and friends. Is there still a chance to save someone? I didn't know what would happen next. But one thing was clear. The world I knew had just ceased to exist. I ran out to the stairwell. There was screaming all around me, and somewhere downstairs a door was slamming. I decided to try to get out through the roof. If I was lucky, I could get my bearings and figure out where to go next. The footsteps seemed too loud, as if every movement betrayed me. The door to the roof was ajar. I looked out. The city was in chaos. Fires were burning in some places, cars were upside down, and people were running without a clear direction. Suddenly, in the distance, I noticed one of the creatures slowly sinking to the ground. It seemed to be gliding in the air. And then I saw that from its long tentacles came something like a black fog that engulfed everything around. People who got into it simply disappeared without a trace. I had a choice: stay on the roof or try to break through the city. Both options seemed fatal. I decided to go downstairs. It was dangerous to move on the roofs. The aliens could see me from above. When I opened the door, I heard a dull rumble. The building was shaking, as if it was hit by an earthquake wave. On the stairs, I met my neighbor, an old man named John. His eyes were filled with terror. "They are already here," he barely whispered. A deafening sound came from outside. I looked out the crack of the door, and one of the aliens was right in the middle of the street. His body was as massive as a skyscraper. It slowly bent down and stretched its long tentacles like whips to the ground. People tried to run, but the shadow enveloped them, and they disappeared into it as if they had never existed. John squeezed my hand, his skin cold as ice. "We have to go," I said, trying not to panic. "We won't live long here." The old man nodded, and we moved downstairs, sneaking around. I tried not to look out the windows, because I knew that outside the house we were being watched at every step. We stopped at the exit. The yard was empty, but I felt that we were being watched. And then I heard a hiss. I turned around and saw that a black fog was oozing out of the ground, through cracks in the asphalt. It wriggled like a living thing, choosing a new victim. I realized that we had to run. We rushed forward without looking back. We could see an overturned bus ahead. Perhaps it could become a shelter. But before we could reach it, the sky above us trembled again, and another creature slowly began to descend to the ground. The light from it stared right at me.